Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you on this Wednesday, brought to you by our good friends at Bubba's 33 down in Clarksville. If you're down that way, stop in right off of I-65. Pizza, burgers, beer. Joined now by our good friend, the Hall of Famer from WDRB.com, Rick Bozich. How's Rick doing?
Doing good, man. It's a little cooler today. Heading towards the All-Star break. Next week, I'll actually be in Charlotte for ACC Media Day.
Oh.
I'm not sure if I'll be able to join you on Wednesday. Might have to push that back to Friday. But yeah, Griffin Gonzalez, who used to work in Bloomington at IU, he and I are going down to Charlotte for ACC Football Media Day, and Eric Crawford and John Lewis will be in Atlanta for SEC Media Day, which that lasts 2 months. I mean, they have every team there for a week, and it's bigger than the Super Bowl if you've ever been to it.
Yeah, we'll have to get Griffin on here sometime.
Yeah,
Dylan, you know Griffin as well.
Absolutely.
But the ACC. Speaking of the ACC, football, that's kind of, I don't know if they belong in the same sentence, but how many more ACC football media days do you think you'll be going to?
There'll be ACC Football Media Days, I guess, but who's going to be there is the question. I mean,
Yeah.
And we've all heard the same rumors. I think Louisville would like to remain in the ACC.
Well, where would Louisville go? I mean, the Big Ten doesn't want them, and the ACC doesn't want them.
You mean SEC? I think they'd like to be in a league that would probably be either the ACC Big 12 hybrid of some kind would be my guess.
Yeah.
I don't think it would hurt Louisville if they were in a league that maybe brought in like a Cincinnati or a West Virginia, two Big 12 teams that they used to play against in the Big East and are more geographical rivals. I know that's sort of a antiquated concept to have geographical rivals where fans could actually drive to the away games and actually attend them, like Louisville fans used to love to go to Cincinnati and or West Virginia. But I think that would be a plus for Louisville to get in the league with those teams. And, Cincinnati was in the college football playoff last year, and West Virginia has had some good teams. They haven't been quite as good over the last decade, but you remember, Jim, when they were in the same league with Louisville back in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, those were great games.
Man, they were tough. Absolutely. Always fun, especially whenever you see a couch getting burnt, baby. It's been a good game.
I'll tell you this. That is the one place I've ever covered a game where when I went on the field, I felt intimidated and slightly unsafe.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a game where Louisville, it was Petrino. I think it was Petrino's first tenure here. And Louisville blew a big lead and lost in the fourth quarter. And by the fourth quarter, they were pretty juiced up and yelling the nastiest, hostile things. And it was a very ugly scene. And they shoot that, even though it's blanks, they had the dude running around.
Well, you think it's blanks. You don't know where they're going to slip a musket in there.
Slow down here, man. I don't need one gunshot's fine, but like the seventh one, man, I'm getting a little nervous.
He's feeling like Abe Lincoln, man.
Yeah. And it's a hostile place to play in basketball, too. I've gone there for several basketball games. It's a Purdue-like arena, where the noise is like capped in like a mini dome. And when Huggy's there, they get into it, and it's an intimidating place.
I can imagine. I wonder, Dylan and Rick, we know that the Big Ten and the SEC are heading towards being the two premier conferences as far as football goes. But I'm not sold that there's just going to be those two, because there's so many teams out there between the Pac-12 and the Big 12 and the ACC. They're not just going to go away and say, okay, well, you guys are, above us or better than us. They're not just going to leave. So there can't just be two conferences. I'm not sold that's going to be the case, but change is happening. We see that. I don't know where we're going to end up, but Dylan, is it going to be three conferences or I think possibly four? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of that is obviously the biggest question right now. And the thing is, as much as we're talking about it, we probably won't know for several years here. We have to wait for the Big Ten and the SEC to add the new teams they have to see how it works. We have to see whether they want to end up expanding more. We have to find out what Notre Dame wants to do, because that's going to be something that apparently a lot of people are waiting on to see what that sets in motion. So it's everything's up in the air right now. I think you're having conferences, especially the ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12 or Pac-12, kind of having discussions to see what the future could look like. But I mean, eventually you're going to get to a point where the Big Ten and the SEC just have such a financial advantage that the playing field is going to be so disproportionate that anyone who wants to play big time football, and this is football specific, by the way, this is not basketball because that's a different discussion, but anyone who wants to play big time football is going to need to get into one of those two conferences in order to have a shot.
Rick, what do you think?
It's competition, and the schools that get left behind will be competitive and try and find other ways to elevate themselves and stay in the game. But what I will be looking for is this. I think we're going to reach a point. I think it won't be that far down the road. There are going to be some schools where at the president, chancellor, board of trustees level, they're going to get to the point and they say, enough. We keep spending more and more and more. We keep raising more and more revenue. And our lot in college football is what it's always been. And I mean, I'm throwing out like a Vanderbilt. I mean, where does this road lead to for them, or Wake Forest or Boston College, those kind of schools, where I think you're going to see some schools saying, we don't want to be at the top. We're never going to be at the top. We want to be at the second level, and we'll be fine to be competitive and good at the second level. And I think it's going to shake out that way because, it struck home again to me. You get the preseason magazines and it's like, it's 2022 or it's 2012 or whatever. It's, well, guess who's picked to go to the playoff? Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. And, this year it's Utah. There's usually one flavor of the week school, but, don't forget Clemson or don't forget Texas A&M or whatever. There's a level of schools that no matter what they do, we never see any change in college football. It's the same teams.
How long before Notre Dame joins a conference? And now with the Big Ten being the natural fit for them, but that doesn't mean anything. But if they were to join the Big Ten, they increase their revenue threefold. Everybody thinks they're making so much money. They're not compared to Big Ten teams, and especially what Big Ten teams are going to be making off of this next TV deal, which is going to be expected to be around $100 million. I think Notre Dame's deal is about $33 million or something like that.
Right.
So I don't know what they're waiting on, because this being independent and flexibility, some of their opponents are already Big Ten schools as it is. And so I don't know what they're waiting on and what they think that they're going to benefit by not joining. I just think that eventually they're going to have to join.
I think it's hard for us to evaluate or put a value on how they value their independence there, because they've had it for so long. I'm old enough to remember when Notre Dame wouldn't play in bowl games. I mean, they were late to the table of playing in bowl games.
Wow, I did not know that.
Till 1973.
Right. Yeah. And
I did not know that.
I'm not sure, that Jack Swarbrick, who's nearing his end of his tenure as their athletic director, wants to have his legacy being the guy that they joined the Big Ten. Because when you join the Big Ten, then you become, in many ways, just another Midwestern school. And you're probably going to come in the shadow of Ohio State and be at the same level of Penn State or Michigan. I mean, you're not going to be the big dog. Ohio State is the big dog in the Big Ten. And as long as they're an independent, Notre Dame, I don't know if they can put a price tag on their independence and their, quote, mystique.
Perception. It's perception is reality, people.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing with, you talk about the money and how much they're going to be behind, and that's absolutely true. The money is going to be ridiculous for the Big Ten in their next TV deal, and they're going to so far outpace Notre Dame. But the problem is Notre Dame is already way behind, but they are a fundraising machine, and so they bring in so much money from outside sources, and they feel like they can keep up regardless of how much money they're behind in terms of the TV deal. So, and they love having the NBC deal, which is exclusive to them, where they're on national TV every home game. And so those are things that they have to measure, because they've talked about this before, and they've said, look, as long as we have a media rights deal that is good for us, and we have a path to the national championship, we're going to be independent. And they've kind of stuck with that. And I'm sure they're listening right now. I'm sure the money is so huge that they have to think about it. But I think they can afford to wait it out and see how this next TV deal goes for the Big Ten.
And I'll also say this. One, look across their entire athletic department. I mean, the football team has made a few playoffs under Brian Kelly. Marcus Freeman now has got either the first, second, or third best recruiting class in the country coming in. Okay, so they are who they are in football. The women's basketball program won a national title a few years ago. They've been a little bit down since Buffett McGraw left, but they're on the way back. The men's baseball team just went to the College World Series. Mike Bray hasn't been great. You know, he's been okay, but I mean, they made the tournament this year and won a couple of games. I mean, they have a feeling like they are the one school that can do it alone. And when they give that up, that would be an issue for them. And so I don't think it'll be a decision they would make quickly, because and plus academically, they view themselves as being a cut above the rest of the Big Ten schools. They do. Yeah. And I don't know whether their alumni would say, we don't, those are good schools, but we don't really want to be a league in with them. And they look at how they've gotten away with it in the ACC. In 2020, they had the least bargaining power possible, and the ACC folded and let them play for the conference championship so they could be eligible for the playoff. So they're used to getting their way.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Rick, is that the ACC really wants Notre Dame to join, but the ACC had the leverage in 2020 to make it happen if they wanted to, and they didn't press it as hard as they probably should have, and that was it for Notre Dame joining the ACC. They'll never join the ACC as a full member now.
They're done. And Notre Dame is the only northern-based school that can teach a coach that's been there 10 years a southern accent.
Well, so far they've kept their base. I mean, Michigan lost its baseball coach to Clemson, and Notre Dame's baseball coach, he's still there, right? I mean, he went to the College World Series. They beat number 1 Tennessee. I mean, they didn't lose their coach, right?
No, he left to go take the Florida State job.
Oh, he did go back to Florida State. Okay,
yeah, because he's no longer.
Well, that's his alma mater, right?
It is his alma mater, yes.
Okay.
So it was one of those things where the season ended, they got eliminated from the World Series, and then immediately the rumors started, and he didn't want to address them right away, but it became pretty obvious that Florida State was where he wanted to be. And so I think they just hired a new coach just the other day. Okay. And his name is escaping me, but yeah, the Link Jarrett is now at Florida State.
FSU.
Well, how about Michigan? Michigan's baseball coach.
Yeah, Tracy Smith.
Yeah, the former Indiana coach that took the Hoosiers to the College World Series back in 2015, back in the Big Ten, and he'll be facing the Hoosiers when they come around.
Found Kyle Schwarber, National League All-Star Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah, his second
All-Star TV the other day, giving out shout-outs to IU baseball. How was the best thing that happened to his career? How about that?
It was all, yeah, I saw that. It was incredible. And Schwarber's having he's just been fun. He's a fun player to watch. He's a fan favorite wherever he goes, but I guess anybody that hits big bombs is always a favorite wherever you go. But yeah, he's a fun dude to have around. Baseball, Indiana's got some young talent. They had 3 All-Americans, freshman All-Americans, I think.
Yeah.
That's kind of rare for a team up north like that, to have that youth. And so they're going to be good next year and really good the year after that.
If they get some pitching, they need some pitching badly.
Yeah.
I know at least 2 of them are in-state kids. One I think is from like Greene County, and the other one's from up by Fort Wayne, I believe, right?
Carter Matheson's from Homestead. He set the IU freshman record for home runs. He had 16 home runs this year. Kyle Schwarber only had 8 as a freshman. So,
there you go. Outfielder, right?
Yeah. Good arm, too. He pitched in high school a little bit.
Those guys are tearing it up. Rick's latest piece, you had out about a guy from Louisville, Will Smith, with the Dodgers. You talk about the All-Star break coming up in his connection. Is he a player?
Will Smith, yeah, he's a catcher.
Oh, the catcher for the Dodgers.
He's
Actually,
one of the best catchers in the National League. He should have been on the All-Star team. He's got more RBIs than any catcher in the National League, and he bats cleanup for the Dodgers. This is his third full season. He's been up in the majors now. He came up in 2019, but former first-round pick, sandwiched around to the Dodgers, and he's a really good player.
who in the world? He's on the best team in the one of the best teams in the National League. Who's the catcher on the National League All-Star team?
Wilson Contreras.
Right.
From
Cubs catcher. Cubs.
Yeah.
And then the backup, I believe, is Travis d'Arnaud of the Braves, I believe. And then Contreras' brother is the DH, I think.
The Dodgers just have too many people on the All-Star team?
They have four.
Probably, yes.
The problem is, every team has to have one dude. So
I was going to say, man, I was like, yeah, they must have too many on there. You get beat out by a Cub. They suck. They're like the Reds.
Yeah, Contreras was voted in by the fans.
Yeah, I mean, Contreras is having as a Cubs fan, I know this. He's having a career year. He's the one bright spot on that team, and he's almost certainly going to get traded at the deadline.
Rick, what's next for you, my friend?
The next thing really is ACC Football Media Day. It'll be interesting to go down there and hear what Commissioner Jim Phillips has to say about the future of the league. Be down, see who else besides Clemson is going to be a threat in the ACC this year, and whether Clemson's going to bounce back, because last year they kind of backslid without Trevor Lawrence. They weren't nearly as good, and he's lost both of his coordinators. I'm pretty sure his offensive coordinator went to Virginia, maybe. Yeah. Tony Elliott, and his defensive coordinator Brent Venables went to Oklahoma. So it's a transition year for Clemson, and then Louisville. How are they going to be as they move into Scott Satterfield's fourth year and coming off back-to-back losing seasons?
Could be relevant to Purdue up here if Louisville doesn't have a good season and Satterfield gets let go. I find it hard to believe Jeff Brom would turn down Louisville a second time.
He won't, because they won't make the same mistake that they made last time, I don't think, either. Plus, it's the timing. Rick knows more than anybody. He's closer to that situation. I think that was about timing, and I was impressed with Jeff Brom. Jeff's a great guy, but I think I believe him when he said that it was about timing and he thought it was too soon.
Right.
And I believe him. I really do, because it's hard for someone. He has no allegiance to the entire state of Indiana in any way. So to stay at a place like that, there's no other reason. So I absolutely believe him, but I agree with you.
That was one of the interesting stories of the week, and I was going to ask you guys if you have any insight into it. That I think I saw, whether it was Sunday or Monday, that Samson James is already leaving Purdue and he didn't even play there. What's the backstory on that?
No idea. He has bounced in and out. This is a guy that didn't he committed to Ohio State originally, correct? Committed to Ohio State. Then goes to IU, then he's in the portal, then he's out of the portal, then he's back in the portal, then he goes to Purdue, now he's in the portal. You have to, I don't know, but man, it would lend you to think that this is a guy who doesn't know what he wants.
Well, it's also interesting because the last year he entered the portal in August and he got to Purdue, and obviously that's way past the deadline, so he couldn't play. This year, he didn't enter the portal until the middle of July, so he might not be able to play again wherever he goes for his new school. It doesn't make any sense really to me that he would wait until this time. If you're going to go in May.
Sounds like a guy getting bad advice from somebody.
Yeah,
and it also raises questions about Purdue's offense, because wasn't it announced at the end of spring practice that Milton Wright was one of their top returning receivers, who's actually from Louisville, wasn't back anymore because of, I think he was academically ineligible. So
they haven't officially announced that, but that's the reporting. Yeah. And so, it's tough because, I mean, Purdue brought in a couple transfers from Iowa, wide receiver and a running back, and they had some running backs available. Samson James would not have been the presumptive starter, I don't think, but it's not good that happened at this point.
And Purdue out of the blocks, I think, on Thursday night of opening week against Penn State, correct? Huge game in West Lafayette.
Yeah.
And then you guys got the Wagner commitment coming up between Louisville and Kentucky. Of course, that's leaning towards Kentucky. It seems
back towards leaning towards Kentucky this week. I don't know who. I don't know who's putting that out and who knows well enough to say which way he's leaning, because the kid just got back from Spain where he played on the USA basketball team in the 17 and under competition where they won, and then he's headed to Peach Jam, which starts, I think, this weekend down in Georgia.
The 17th.
Right.
4 days, 4 days from now.
What's the latest on this wide receiver from Air Force or something that was considering Indiana? Is that anything happened on that?
Is that the kid that came for a visit?
I don't know. I just saw over the weekend there was some kid who started at Air Force at wide receiver who was considering Indiana as a transfer option.
I've not seen anything move forward on that, but I will check with our football writers and see where that lies. I haven't seen anything more on that or heard anything more on that. Football, they're keeping football locked down.
Yeah.
Other than the news that they are releasing, they are keeping it locked down. And I'm like, all right, whatever.
I was going to say, I wonder how much access we're going to get during fall camp, because we didn't get any during spring practice.
I don't think you'll get any access to any live hitting at all.
That's nuts to me. I mean,
last year they ran a lot of offense inside the indoor facility.
Yeah.
Well, we were outside where we couldn't see. So
they
did that last
year. I think after what they went through last year, I think after bringing in 2 new coordinators, I think they're not willing to get. Illinois plays 1 game before they play Indiana, and Indiana doesn't play any. I don't think they want Bielema and the Illini to have anything at all on Indiana. That's
absolutely, because that's going to be a tough start playing a conference opponent that has already had a game. It's absolutely must win.
If you're going to go to a bowl game, it's a must win because it's a home game against one of the teams from the West that's in the bottom half of the West, and you're trying to change the vibe from last season of how disappointing it was. That's a game, in my opinion, they have to win to have it to think they're going to have a successful year.
And it's interesting because the media might get to that Illinois game without having seen Connor Bazelak take a single snap in an IU uniform. That's wild.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Rick Bozich, make sure you give him a follow at WDRB.com. Appreciate him so much. We look forward to each and every week, brother. Have a great week and rest of your weekend.
All right. We'll work it out for next week because we'll probably have to move it to. I'm leaving for Charlotte on Tuesday morning. It may have to be Friday.
Tell my family you said hello.
Okay.
They live down there.
You live in Charlotte?
Yeah. My dad lives in Harrisburg. My brother's in Concord over by the track. They moved down there when I was in high school.
Okay. I'll do that. I see him.
Well, don't get pulled over by my brother. He's a state trooper.
If they'll be at a White Sox AAA game Tuesday night, I'll definitely see him.
Absolutely. Rick Bozich.